Ooh. How's it going, Redditors? I have a background that is green screens. If anyone complains about the green screen background, that's fine, I understand. As some of you may know, I use a tiny, teeny, underground, not very well-known website that goes by the name of Reddit. I use it for a whole bunch of things. I'm gonna post this video there. I use it to read discussion about films and TV that I watch, all the different superhero stuff mostly, and I use it for news. And some people use it for porn. Reddit is a great place to find entertainment. You can look at memes. You can look at deep-fried memes. You can look at dank memes. You can look at any kind of meme you could think of. You put a word in front of memes, there's probably a subreddit for it. You can look at game or movie-specific memes like Raimi memes or Overwatch memes. They have it all, dude. It's this giant hub for people that create haha funny things to post their haha funny things. There's a flip side to this, however. Not all of these communities can be winners. This is the part of the video where I tell you that this is strictly my opinion and that if you don't agree with me, that's perfectly fine. But you're legally wrong. And I know this particular opinion probably isn't that controversial, but to some people, apparently a large amount of people, because it's like the third most subscribed subreddit on Reddit, our funny is not funny. It's just so big. Like, it's one of those default subreddits that you're subscribed to when you join the website that kind of drags down the quality, in my opinion. And I hate this word, but some Redditors would call it a normie subreddit. And that argument has merit. And the fact that you're automatically subscribed to it brings in so many new people that all of the old stuff hasn't been seen, and that is a great way to generate reposts on the subreddit. Also, if you are unaware of how Reddit works at a base level, the gist is you post something, it goes into the new feed, and people that sort by new are the dictators of what gets shown to people that sort by hot by upvoting those new posts and downloading ones that are bad. This has benefits because then you don't have to look at all of the garbage shit that gets posted every second on Reddit, but it also lends itself to this hive mind that is on Reddit, and that's most of my argument here, and most of what I don't like about it as a platform. But of course, I use Reddit. I use it for entertainment purposes. I have subreddits that I think are hilarious and I go on all the time, like YouTube Haiku, and sometimes our videos if it's just in our all. That subreddit's too big again, so I don't actually go on it. Things like Crappy Design and Bone Apple Tea all crack me up when the posts are good, which is about half the time, I'd say. A quick little thing that something that bothers me about Bone Apple Tea and Crappy Design, sometimes people don't know what the subreddit is about, and they'll post things that aren't actually crappy design, like it's intentionally too good design, and that makes it a little bad. Or they'll post things on Bone Apple Tea that is just like a spelling error. Come on, dude, that's not what the subreddit is for. Get out of here. YouTube Haiku has issues with content creators being banned on it because they post too often, or their stuff gets posted too often because it's good. For example, this has happened to people like Gus Johnson and ProZD. And like I said, videos is a little too much for me. It's all over the place. I like my content to be a little more geared toward my general interest than that. But if I see it in RL, I'll click on it because that normally means it's more interesting to a wider audience. And there's this great little subreddit called NewTubers that I use to find really good small creators and to post my stuff and get valuable critique from those small creators. It's a great way to start discussion about being a small creator. Wow, what a good natural segue, Jake. You're great at this. Thanks, Jake. Wow, you're such a kind and lovely person. Oh my god, aren't those guys just so wholesome? Anyway, on to discussion. YouTube is this great place for me to discuss this YouTube thing that I'm doing, and I get a ton of valuable feedback from there, and I do my best to implement it. I get to see what other small creators are doing, I get to see what works and what doesn't, and sometimes, very rarely, I get to distill my own endless, bountiful wisdom onto the masses. And that's a great subreddit. I have nothing really negative to say about it. However, there are other things on Reddit that I like to discuss, like games and all the superhero television I watch, like I mentioned earlier. For this, I use subreddits like our Marvel Studios and our Magic Arena, and those are great subreddits. The Magic one is bountiful, it's a great place to learn the game, and Marvel Studios is super positive and super great spot to discuss those films. And there are a flip side to those. There's subreddits like r Flash TV and r Arrow that are a little more negative. They're the most popular Arrowverse subreddits and most popular shows, and sometimes they kind of cause me to question why I even bother reading these discussion threads, because a lot of them are the same. But honestly, I know I said that I like the first two, and I like the second two less, but I have the same issue with all four of them. Whenever I go on to any of these subreddits, it feels like there's a vocal majority of people that have already decided all of their opinions on everything discussed there. We're coming back to this hive mind thing I was talking about earlier. Our Arrow is the prime example of this for me. It has decided as a group that seasons 1 and 2 and Season 5 are peak of the show, and if you like Season 3 and 4 at all,
oh my god, how dare you.
And obviously there are people that don't think that way, like me. I'm sure I'm not alone in this, I hope. But there are enough people on the subreddit that do think that way, that they got the subreddit to become a Daredevil subreddit during the off-season. Think about that for a minute. They didn't like the show so much that they converted the subreddit into a different show's subreddit. And honestly, I can't be too mad about that. It's fucking hilarious that they did that. It's a great meme. But these group opinions on topics are present in every subreddit that I mentioned to varying degrees. Flash TV, pretty much as a whole, hates Season 3 and 4's villains. Magic the Gathering has a circle jerk over red decks, but that's true of Magic everywhere, I guess. And Marvel Studios has just a huge raging boner for the MCU that it's really hard to be critical of those films in any way. Except for, Thor 2 and The Incredible Hulk, because those are bad. Don't look at them. That's how the subreddit acts. And I can totally get behind each of these opinions and that people can have them. That's totally okay. And there's nothing wrong with that if it's on an individual level. I hold some of these opinions myself, but my issue comes from a lack of push in the opposite direction ever. I feel like there's a lack of critical thinking on Reddit, and a lot of the time people just look at the top upvoted comment, whether it's an opinion or whether it's supposed to be a fact about something, and they just believe it right away. That's a common issue on the internet as a whole, really. And there's a really famous example of this that I'd like to bring up here and speak of for a moment. We're gonna get a little somber, but I think it's important to talk about. And that's the Boston Marathon bombing and how Reddit tried to discover who did that. Reddit set its sights to discovering the perpetrator of the Boston Marathon bombing, and they thought they had figured it out. They went so far as to dox the person that they believed to be the suspect, which led to harassing messages and phone calls to the person's family. The young man in question, Sunil Tripathi, if I'm saying that wrong, I'm really sorry, was found dead by suicide in a river. And it was huge news. Speaking of news, wow, great segue, you're doing a real good job, Jake. I use Reddit for news as well. Subreddits like Our Games, Our Nintendo Switch, and Our Canada are all subreddits that keep me informed on things that I care about. And that's extremely valuable to me, being able to pick and choose what I see. But of course, these subreddits also have issues. Our Gaming is just a circle jerk of EA bad and look at these cringy gaming memes. It suffers from a lot of the same things that I think Our Funny does, in that you're kind of default subscribed to it. And if you're a gamer on Reddit, it's kind of the first place that you go, and because of that, it's kind of oversaturated, I guess. And it's really practically impossible to get news from it, because it's just so many people shitposting and showing memes and being like, EA is doing bad thing, oh god. And that's why Our Games exists, which is just a way better subreddit that is mostly for gaming news. Our Nintendo Switch is a good example of an issue that I find present in many gaming-related subreddits that are mostly specific games or consoles or something. About half of the posts are super helpful and super good news posts about games coming out, or patch notes, or new hardware changes, just things that are interesting for me to look at. And then the other half is stuff like, look at these custom Joy-Cons I built, look at this screenshot from Breath of the Wild, or Mario Kart, or look at this really awesome clip from the game number 468, or there are posts complaining about all of those posts I just named. Both of those things are equally annoying to me. People that do those things, and then the people that post complaining about it. And Our Canada I use as real world news. It's my source for political stuff or whatever, and also for the occasional satire article from the Beaverton, which is like The Onion but for Canada. It's great, you should check it out if you care. But I really don't have any issue with that. It's kind of like a hive mind in its own, but that's mostly based on who uses Reddit. It's pretty left-wing, but that's all of Reddit, so I don't know what I would have expected. Then there's nothing wrong with that with me. Politics are politics at the end of the day. Probably gonna cut this part out because of politics, oh jeez. But yes, I do use Reddit in spite of all of these negative things I just listed to you, and that's because it's just so damn useful. The ability to curate the things that I look at on the site is just such a good feature. I can look at educational shit, and I can look at memes, and I can look at discussion about shows and television that I watch all in the same little feed and just scroll for hours. It's really addicting and really useful. Honestly, I could probably make a video ranting about every single subreddit that I'm sub to, but I think we'll probably cut the video here so it doesn't go on for 20 hours. New videos every Friday. Like, subscribe, social media. See you later, gamers.